Hello, this is Stephen Allen. Yes, we are back with yet another Batman 66 episode review. Today, we'll be reviewing the episode Ice Spy, with Batman and Robin once again up against Mr. Freeze. So without any further ado, let's hop into the review. We begin our episode on the luxury liner Gotham Queen, carrying Professor Isaac and a world-renowned skating queen, Glacier Glaze. Now, everyone is on deck having a fancy meal when suddenly the Gotham Queen encounters an iceberg which is in Gotham Harbor. And it turns out that this iceberg is actually a secret hideout, a ship that is controlled by Mr. Freeze, who is back once again, played by a different actor. It also turns out that Glacier Glaze is Mr. Freeze's accomplice and is helping him to kidnap Professor Isaacson. We then have the usual opening. We then follow with the usual opening credit, and then Gordon places a call to Batman about the incident. And it doesn't take everyone long to figure out that Mr. Freeze was clearly responsible. Batman and Robin then head back to the Batcave to do some more investigating. We then return to Mr. Freeze at his new hideout along with Glacier. It reveals out that he has kidnapped Professor Isaacson to help to essentially have him reveal the secret formula for an instant ice rape, but the professor won't do so. So of course Mr. Freeze does some of his own versions of persuading. Batman is then back at the Batcomputer and with the help of Robin try to deduce possible accomplices for Mr. Freeze. They then come up with a woman named Emma Strunk. But Batman knows for a fact that Emma Strunk is the real name to Glacier Glaze, and would have no doubt changed it for for her career, but she would have used the name on the ship to help avoid publicity. We then also find out that Mr. Freeze's new hideout, not the one in the iceberg, but his in many ways second hideout, is under the Bruce Wayne Ice Arena, and he then uses and we find out he has yet another accomplice, a seal, which he then uses to send a note that Bruce Wayne must make a televised broadcast at midnight, saying that that Mr. Freeze will be paid his ransom for presumably Isaacson's freedom, but also that Batman and Robin will need to be ready at midnight to act as intermediaries. We then get this funny scene of Gordon and Chief O'Hara essentially calling up Batman and Bruce Wayne, and Adam West having to answer both phone calls. How the hell he manages to keep himself composed and not break character is really funny. I am getting a hoot out of it. We then see Bruce Wayne arrive at his ice arena along with Anne Harriet as they are attending to see Glacier Glaze. Soon afterward, Bruce receives a phone call from Dick, and after using an anti-eavesdrop bat plug, he is told by Dick that he has brought the remote Batmobile phase advisor, and Bruce then instructs him to remotely bring the Batmobile to the back alley behind police headquarters and put their costumes in some rental lockers outside of Commissioner Gordon's office. It's getting confusing, I know, but it's getting a little bit more. It doesn't take long for anyway, Bruce and Dick arrive at police headquarters, and Bruce pre-tapes a telecast for Mr. Freeze just after the two depart. Batman and Robin then make their appearance and receive the briefcase full of dummy money that was done in the conversation between Bruce and Batman. How it happened? Well, everyone's confused, but honestly, we're not even at the confusing part yet of this two-part story. Batman then gives Commissioner Gordon a small echoing seal pulsar, which he says may help them later, and to essentially put it on the seal. As Batman and Robin make their way to Mr. Freeze's whereabouts of Mr. Freeze, Robin heard without waiting for Mr. Freeze's instructions. Batman and Robin arrive at Mr. Freeze's lair just in time as Mr. Freeze is about to warn the to watch the news broadcast of his supposed ransom. Batman and Robin arrive, and Mr. Freeze, after finding out the money was fake or dummy money, he tries to use his gun on the dynamic duo, but they don't end up freezing because they're wearing their their bat skivvies. As a result, the Cape Crusaders get into a fight with Mr. Freeze's men, only for them to be forced into, let's read, a vaporizing pipe pump cabinet, which essentially is to freeze them and in that way. And that's where we end our cliffhanger. I know I was a bit not very good at speaking about the episode, but it's kind of getting a little bit complicated with Mr. Freezer episodes. Anyway, the cast is back once again. Commissioner Gordon, Chief O'Hara are silly as ever. Batman and Robin, Bruce Wayne, Dick Grayson, fine as always, played by Adam West and Burt Ward, and the scenes we get with Alfred and Harriet are fun as always. There's nothing really interesting or different really with this episode this time around, other than the fact that Mr. Freeze is once again back. Like I said, Mr. Freeze is back once again, this time portrayed by Eli Wallach, a famous character actor in his own time, famous for westerns, Western movies such as the first Magnificent Seven and his role in The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. I happen to know him from The Godfather Part 3 as Don Antebello, arguably one of the best bits about that film. Anyway, Mr. Freeze has been portrayed by 3 different actors. George Sanders plays a more sympathetic version, Otto Preminger arguably portrays a more criminal, cold-hearted, and arguably something that could be more reminiscent of modern comics, but also showing a bit of character as he wants to essentially live a life, to, have the love of, find someone to settle down with. Eli Wallach portrays the character as more of a cartoony, mad scientist character with his own unique accent, I will rather say. You can really tell he's really hammering it up a bit and arguably he's, in my opinion, the funniest ones of the Mr. Freezes. And I think he does a fantastic job with what he's given. I also like the design. It stays true to George Sanders, Otto Preminger's look, but I also like how his hair clearly has a bit of ice because of his cold temperature. Now, I prefer Otto Preminger and George Sanders' version both equally. Even though Eli Wallach may not be my preferred favourite, I have grown to love his performance over the years, and I will admit he has done a different and unique portrayal. Also, his scheme is essentially to find the formula to create instant ice through an ice ray. Is really more something in common with Mr. Freeze. I consider it almost if this is where the idea for those type of stories came from this episode. It's really interesting, and I often have to wonder. Here we have our last window cameo, Carpet King. Not really huge. Well, when you think about how this is technically our last window cameo, it can come off as a bit meek because he is really the last window cameo. With the last window cameo, you need someone with a big name, and this one not really. But he was pretty huge at the time, and was probably there to help promote his, product at the time. It may be considered a lame window cameo, but considering it is the last window cameo we will have is something, because when season 3 pops around, it's going to be a completely different format in how that season will progress. So I can't really exactly be angry at what we got. I Spy is okay. It is an okay. With, honestly, Eli Wallach doing his best, and with something that should be classical, it also feels rather weird. And considering the budget for this episode is pretty impressive, considering what the budget is going to be when we go into season 3. And it makes sense and honestly, it's an okay to fun episode. Not groundbreaking or spectacular, but it is a fun, enjoyable romp nonetheless, though a bit confusing at times. There we have it. I Spy. Join us next time in the Duo Defy, which will be the final episode of season 2. So tune in next time to the same Steven hour, the same Steven channel, ladies and gentlemen. So long for now.